Jim, I will invite you to do prayer, and I introduce Jim Thompson, who is our practitioner from Las Vegas. He's been here a few times, so if you missed him, this will be the first time that you meet him, and he is super awesome, and he comes with Debbie Little all the time. They take turns, and we welcome him again.
So if it's comfortable for you, go ahead and lower or close your eyes. And so how beautiful and loving it is to simply be in this space. A space of love, of joy, of peace, of wisdom, of wholeness. As I recognize that one life, that one infinite presence that I know as God, as Spirit. And in this awareness, I simply anchor myself in it. Knowing that all the love, all the joy, all the peace, and the wisdom are at the very center of my being. And as I know this is true for myself, I know this is true for each person here, that this morning, that everyone that has come here is blessed and is a blessing. And that whatever you came to receive, you absolutely will receive today. And I know that this morning, this service, and everything that went into the makings of it, the sound, the music, is simply led by divine love. That's where it starts, and that's where it ends, with love. And so it is in this knowing I simply give thanks, blessing each person here, and this service, and this center, knowing that it's all God and it's all good. And together we say, So yeah, I've changed a little bit since the last time I was here. Last time I was getting ready to play Santa. It's the beard. Reading a stopwatch this time. So I was supposed to be here last month. I don't remember when. And we had a little glitch in our lives. Some of you may or may not know my mother passed away. And it was interesting because as I was readying myself for this talk, Dad and I have had some long conversations. I brought him with me, by the way. I'm blessed to have grown up in religious science. I truly am. Because it prepared me for all of that emotional stuff that came through. I did a lot of reading preparing for the talk. I did a lot of listening. And it's interesting because I just watched the movie I Can Only Imagine. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. The song is awesome itself, but the story behind the song is like, oh. I mean, I don't get that emotional, but I got emotional for that one. The song itself is written by the group Mercy Me. I've had the CD before, and I've actually sung the song in a couple different churches. Religious science ones, believe it or not. Even though they're more Christian-based band, you know what? Truth is truth. And when it's spoken, it hits you right in the heart. So it also got me thinking about today's topic after watching that movie. And of course I did some reading, and it's funny because I found another book to read just the other day while I was waiting for something else. I was like, huh, I can use this. But today's topic is your invisible forces. I like the AKA, the forces in you. And you will hear my Yoda here before too long. I do Yoda quite well. With Mom's passing, I found that growing up in metaphysics, it made it much easier for me because I don't think of death as a in her case, it's transition, moving forward, moving on. And as Dad and I were discussing, she's not in pain anymore. So emotionally, I really do not necessarily always show my emotions. It's more of an inner thing with God and I. We have these little conversations. So I know my forces are always guiding me. And they're with me whenever I need them. In the reading that brought up some of this, it was interesting because Ernest Holmes, I think it was on page 227 where the topic actually starts this month in Living the Science of Mind. If you don't have the book, get it. You'll need them anyway. Take classes, you'll need some of those books. Living the Science of Mind and the Science of Mind itself. But he said here in the beginning of this chapter, it's been said that the average person only draws 10% of their real capacity. 10%. That leaves 90% is mostly submerged and unused. So think about the force within you. How much are you using? He said, I said this. I said, let that sink in for a minute now. Just again, 10%. If you can magnify that even twice, you'd be on top of your game. Your meditations might be a little more productive. Now, you'd think we'd be able to multiply our talent many times over. I would think so. And Ernest said, I'm more of the positive that we can achieve this if we try. Now, see, I'm of the mindset that we don't try, we do. This is where Yoda comes in. There is no try. Do or do not. Because trying means that we're not there yet. Now, there's a couple of books. There's one in particular called Faith It Till You Make It. Reverend Bernardo, I think, is the one that wrote the book. It's an awesome book. And that's, my dad and I were talking about this on the way here about a science of mind in the 70s. It was all about manifesting that Maserati or that BMW or that wonderful house. It's a little bit more than that. You know, if you're not a piece of yourself, that Maserati is never going to be good enough anyway, or that BMW. So Ernest said to give you because he always talks about having a mental equivalent of what he's referring to, you know, how you manifest things. So when we allow the force to move through us instead of us blocking it, here's something he says, picture a tree in full bloom. In all its beauty and splendor, we're reminded, however, that its roots are entirely invisible. Okay? And unless we drew on this invisible source, it would never flourish. Think about that with spirit. If we don't draw on it, if we don't commune with it, and we're not using it, only 10% of what we're actually using, manifest that fully. Move it forward, always forward. This center is doing that, by the way. I've noticed, you know, the change in the faces. There's more folks here, which is awesome. I know you've gone through going through the co-creation process. Again, an awesome thing to do. And to manifest what your desires are. Also be careful about what you put out there too. I'll get to that here at the top. He says our roots are in the mind of God. Our individuality and everything that we are and do is an effect of the invisible forces which continually draw on the infinite. But in our ignorance, we limit the flow of divine power into our lives. How many can relate to that? We get in our own way sometimes. And I know I talked. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I'll get off topic and then not use my notes. Of course, it's not intentional. We don't intentionally go out to destroy ourselves, do we? Don't intentionally go out to have that accident. For all we want is to make good in life. We want people to like us. If you remember, especially I can remember as a teenager, that was a big thing. I always wanted to be liked. I always wanted to be with the popular kids. Never was because I was more of a rebel. Oh, and by the way, had I known you had changed your dress code, now I wore black of all things in the middle of the summer. I'd have come in my shorts, my t-shirt. I'm just going to remember that for July. But my minister, who I grew up with, Reverend Carol, she would have choked me out if I'd have walked in with shorts and a t-shirt on. If she were around to do it. Because she was, actually I am rebelling. I didn't wear a tie today because of that. It says, we want people to like us and we desire to be worthwhile, but too often when we take inventory of our assets, we depend only upon the circumstances that surround us. We say, how can I ever better myself? I haven't the personality. Or I haven't the natural attractiveness which is necessary to making a life, a good life, right here, is where faith and the power that must be brought into play, for we as individuals are rooted in this power. It was his great claim on power, greater than that enabled Jesus to become a divine when he was still living on earth. And he said, of thine own self I can do nothing. The Father within that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. So on his advice, we too should know and trust and have faith that the universal good is doing its work through us, as us. And not worry about how it gets done. As Jesus said, consider the lilies in the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin, and yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Allow that energy, allow that essence, allow that divine love to radiate in, through, and as you. Allow it to be you in your every thought, word, and activity. And I guarantee that your life starts moving in a direction and you'll be going, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Well, once you stop worrying about the how, you just get there. If you worry about the how, you get in your way. That word, worry, that's one of those blocking, stumbling blocks out of your conversation. And if you say, I can't, you're right. Change your words. Change how you talk to yourself. Change that inner conversation. That let the force work through you. Think about this for a moment. God has need of us, else it would have not put us here. We talk about it in Science Mind that they're co-creators with the divine. So there's a reason why we're all here. There's a reason why you're all here in this room. The divine creator wishes to express through you, or we wouldn't have an existence. Think about that. God lives in us as us, expressing fully always. This is something Ernest has repeated to us, said many different ways, but it's plain as day to those of us who are, and I say it all the time, that's because it's become part of my vocabulary, that to the degree we become conscious of that indwelling presence is to the degree to which we have that manifestation. And if you need to have a mental equivalent of it, go back to the tree, or the flowers, or the birds. They don't worry about the stuff that we as humans, for some reason, seem to worry about. To live the enlightened life is to allow yourself to be a vessel through which the divine is truly expressed. I love that one. Because I've always felt that way. Allow yourself to be a vessel through which spirit lives, moves, and has its every being. Every thought, every word, every activity. Allow yourself to be moved. Don't try to move the mountain yourself. Allow spirit to work through you, to clear the path, to lighten your way. Now, how to access this power, you might ask? Well, we teach those very things here at the center. Prayer, big one, affirmative prayer. Your statement opened up with it. Immediately. The first two steps of the affirmative prayer, there's one life, that life is God. That life is perfect. And the second step, that life is my life now, because I now commune with that divine. Anything after that's gravy. Because once you've opened that doorway, once you've opened that divine idea, something bigger than yourself, that, oh, hey, yeah, I am part of that. Stop that. It shuts off too quick. Allow yourself to be moved. Allow yourself to be the vessel through which spirit works. Did you hear anything in that affirmative prayer about negativity? About I can't? Or I'm just not good enough? Because I'd sure like to know who told you that. Smack them. Okay, we don't teach that. Bless them. But in all honesty, they're lying to you. I can point you to the liars every day of the week. Just turn on the news. I'm serious. Is there any positivity coming out of the news? I don't care what channel you watch. It doesn't matter. And if you allow yourself to be part of that, what Ernest Holmes called race consciousness, or you get off into the energy of all of that, oh my gosh. High blood pressure, hypertension, heart attack, stroke. We'll go down the list of stuff. There is one life. That life is God's life. It is perfect and is my life now. If you don't pick up anything else out of here, pick that up. And I think I've said it every time I come here, but it's important. Because that is the first two steps of affirmative prayer. The other stuff is all gravy on top of that. It's whatever you're wishing to have expressed in your life. The recognition part of okay, yeah, I know there's one life that's perfect, it's whole and complete, It's abundant. There's nothing holding that power source back, so what's holding me back? Oh, that's right, I got my own way here. Meditate, if nothing else, on those first two steps. Sit with those. There's one life, that life is perfect. It is God. And it's my life. Anything after that is gravy. And then if you're looking for something specific like a relationship or health or whatever, affirm that. Affirm perfect health. If you're looking for a minister, you're affirming that with your mission statement. Absolutely. Because you want whoever that is to be grounded, to be whole. I like the word wholeness. Wholeness works for me. Because that covers all the other words that you want to fill in there. I don't need words. I want feeling. I want emotion. I want inspiration. And I want someone to call me on my stuff when I'm getting it wrong. Because I'd rather not go down that wrong road, if you don't mind. It's a little bumpy and it hurts. Sometimes we need it. Get us where we need to go. Jesus said something a little bit different. He actually made it a little simpler. He said, to become still and know that I am God. Meaning that God is all that I am, yet I am not all that God is. But through me, I am expressing God fully. Powerful stuff. Through you, you are expressing God fully. If you so choose, by the way. So just in those first two steps, I already said that. You didn't hear any doubt, worry, or fear. None of that, right? The first two steps. Of course not, because the words lay aside the worldly idea of what Ernest called race consciousness, or believing in something that someone else tells you. I point you to, I already said that. Oh, here's the one. Chicken Little. Everyone remembers Chicken Little. Some of us are old enough to remember Chicken Little, or the story thereof. The sky is falling, right? Always, the sky is falling. Again, I refer you to the local news, or the newspapers, or even the radio stations, for crying out loud. Oh my gosh. That's not my experience. And I don't want it to be yours either. You don't need that in your life. You really don't need that. Open yourself up to something bigger. So, Luke Skywalker, you know I got to add Star Wars in here, being we're in the Force. He was always telling Yoda, oh, I can't do that. It's too hard. And Yoda, judge me by my size, do you? As he was lifting up his speeder out of the muck. If you say you can't, you're absolutely right. But if you say you can, and you know that you can, this is something in, I think it's probably, I don't know if it's in track 1 or what, but when deep touches deep, when you get into that space where you know and you know that you know, beyond a shadow of doubt that there's an essence in the universe that you can use for good. The only limit God has is the limits we, the human, put on it. Let that sink in for a second. The only limit are the ones that you and I put on ourselves. Ernest says on page 230 in Living the Science of Mind, we should never say God cannot or will not, but always God can, will, and does. And having cleared all doubt from the consciousness, we must learn to affirm that all the power and all the presence and all the life there is for us, in us, around us. And there's one more thing we can certainly and should know, that the higher forces of life are always, always working constructively for your good, by the way. And there seems to be no limit to it. There's no limit to their positivity. There's no limit to the love. There's no limit to the joy. There's no limit to the peace, clarity, wisdom, grace. The only condition, however, that the divine has laid down, by which may be considered limiting, but it really isn't, is we cannot expect to use this power for good for evil purposes. Now the golden rule comes to mind here. We cannot expect to use the power of good for evil purposes, nor could we expect through hate to generate love, nor hope for God to give us that which we refuse to pass on to others. hence the law of circulation, hence the tithing thing. We're not real big on it in science, but we are. If you're not tithing the place that feeds you, you're going to be starving, just as the place you're sitting in may starve. So the golden rule, do unto others before, no, that's my brother's version of it. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How do you want to be treated? Now, there's a big question, because the inner talk, that force within you, that inner talk is what's super important, because if you're wallowing in that little muck, I can't. Oh, I'm this. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. I'm too thin. I'm too whatever. Oh, I'm not that athletic. Okay. If that's your boat, ride in it. But when we're on the right track, you know what? There is no limit. And when we get on the wrong track, we go to where the trail runs out and stops. That's that proverbial brick wall when you're going, why? Why? You know, God imparted upon us this lovely thing called choice, called volition. Using it constructively in unity and love and sympathy with everything around us. If we expect to live the fullest, that's what we have to do. There's no other condition imposed on us from the divine. Everyone is born to be created and to live life to the fullest and to enjoy life. To be happy, glad, prosperous, and whole. We do not believe that God is a failure. Right? Anybody in here a failure? No. God does not create mistakes. You are of divine creation. There are no